So the Mavericks are going through it right now. They've lost 6 in a row. You could say, well, they had some positive tests earlier on and they just haven't been able to really bounce back from that yet. I'm sure that's part of it, but I do think there's some basketball things to point to as well. Specifically in their last 6, they're like 29th in defensive rating, 23rd in offensive rating, and it's kind of a bunch of things. You could say it's missed open threes. You could say Porzingis, while he is a finesse player, the finesse-type shots are starting to hurt him a little too much. You could say that their offense in general has just been a little less dynamic across the board. The offensive rebounding has been a problem, or giving up offensive rebounds specifically. I did mention the missed threes, and also they're just kind of getting torched by whoever for every game. I mean, against the Rockets, which was the beginning of this losing streak, it was Eric Gordon and DeMarcus Cousins. It was a lot of pick and pops where Willie Cauley-Stein or Boban were just not fast enough to close out to Boogie on the pop, or Gordon would just take a pull-up because they wouldn't step up on him. And sure, there were a couple of the signature Eric Gordon just kind of shoot a three-pointer things, but that was the first game. Against Denver, it was JaMychal Green pick and pops, and it was also Michael Porter Jr. just kind of getting whatever he wanted to get. Whether it was a pull-up three in transition when nobody picked him up, or a couple of cuts off the baseline when defenders would fall asleep. There was one handoff play where, James Johnson was kind of near Porter, but he didn't close out hard enough. They would pay too much attention to Jokic, and then Porter would just slip underneath the basket. One time he had Luka in not really an ISO, but I guess more of a handoff situation. And he just pump fakes once, and then Luka jumps out of the play. He could score there. So it could just be a matter of better individual defense. It could be a matter of trapping or switching on actions more often. Just something to make guys a little more uncomfortable. You could say similar things in the 2 Jazz games they played. One of them, Jordan Clarkson, again, if it was a handoff play that was designed to get going to the basket, whether it's a three where they don't step up on the screen, there's just not a lot of discomfort for ball handlers versus Dallas right now. Chris Paul, who of course has made a living off of picking on big guys, did the same thing against them for 2 straight games. Just run them in a screen, and then it's either Porzingis has to switch to him, and then CP just takes a couple dribbles to the left or the right and goes into the classic Chris Paul 13-footer or whatever. And you can say, well, at least we're not giving him free throws, we're not giving him layups on these possessions, but there's still not enough resistance. There's not enough of stepping up on a ball handler or crowding him or collapsing with extra defenders and then closing out to the shooters from there. The second chance points and the extra possessions they're giving up to teams, those things matter certainly, but I don't think it's just that, and I don't think it's them just being unlucky from 3 as to why their defensive rating has been so rough lately. Is there a simple fix to it all? Kleba being back could be a big thing for him, but they just have to be better as a team. Windhorst on his podcast said that scouts are saying Dallas simply doesn't play hard enough right now, and there could be something to that. I guess if we can flip to the offense now, I'll get into the shot making and the percentages, but the first thing to notice is Dallas's offense just looks less dynamic this year. Last season there was more off-ball action, there would be more handoff plays, give-and-go types of actions, and just more of a sense of not really knowing what's coming next. Whereas this season, it's like really lethargic. It's Luka brings the ball up court, gets a screen, and maybe 2 defenders come up to him, he throws it to another guy or whatever. Before you know it, there's like 10 seconds left in the shot clock, and barely anything has happened. So the easy thing to say is, well, they're just missing open threes. In the last 6 games specifically, they've shot below 30% from 3 a couple times. They haven't had one league average 3-point shooting game, really. And a lot of it is off of Luka pick and rolls. That's not all it is, but that's still the bread and butter of this team. Sure, that's definitely part of it. I think looking at Porzingis' individual performance, though, is a bit telling for this team. Granted, he hasn't played in every game in this losing streak, and hell, they were winning some games without him, and for what that means, I don't know. I feel like I end up saying this every time with Porzingis, but he takes these turnaround mid-rangers, these fadeaway mid-rangers over wing players a lot of the time. And I guess I just have to accept that that's got to be his bread and butter shot. I mean, in a perfect world, could he overpower some of these smaller guys who are defending him in the post and get some more trips to the free throw line or whatever? Yeah, but if it hasn't happened at this point, it's probably just not going to. There are possessions where Jamal Murray has switched on to him or whoever, and he's still going with the same thing. I mean, there's times when he's around the basket and he gets a dump-off pass or whatever, and he's in a good position to just go up with a standard layup or just kind of power his way to the basket for something to draw contact, and he chooses to go with some finesse type of a finish, and I think it's hurting him quite a bit, definitely in these last 6 games. I mean, sure, some of them are going to go in more, but it's still not ideal. And on top of that, he hasn't even been making his threes this year. I mean, I assume those are going to go in too. If his threes aren't going to go in, then that's going to be a big problem. Some of Porzingis' threes are not great, as in they'll just be normal offense going on and he just decides to hijack the possession and shoot a 3 with a guy kind of near him. But at the same time, given the height and given what we have seen Porzingis be as a shooter at times, you'd think that's not the worst shot you could get, or he could at least make enough of those for that to be okay. So we'll just have to see with that. I think one thing you could say is, well, does this team just simply need another creator? Because one thing defenses are doing a little bit more now, and I think you really saw it, especially late in the Suns game, is they're just bringing extra attention to Luka. And whether that was like DeAndre Ayton switching onto him and actually doing an okay job in the fourth quarter, or it's just running a little bit of a zone defense, honestly, like up top. Like it's not a strict zone, but like they go and do it real quick as a way to like bring 2 defenders to Luka, but not just trap him to where then there's an obvious open guy. And I think it's freaking him out a little bit. I still think they should be better than what they've been. And some of it goes back to missing open threes, but I also think some of it is also like, who else on the team besides Luka can make a play off the dribble? I mean, in theory, it could be a few guys. Tim Hardaway Jr., Jalen Brunson, Porzingis can do things off the dribble. And you would hope for Richardson as well, but I mean, Porzingis is clearly not all the way back right now. Richardson, you know, he showed signs 2 years ago with Miami as an offensive player. Since he was traded to Philly, his off-the-dribble game and all that, it just has been a disappointment. And I think part of the reason Dallas made that move with him and Seth Curry is what they were hoping that they could tap into that again, and it just hasn't really been a thing so far. Although he did have 24 against Phoenix, we will give him that. But the 3 games beforehand, he had less than 10 points. And as far as could they get another guy to take some of the pressure off of Luka with the ball handling and all that, I mean, maybe in the offseason, but if we're talking about this season specifically, I don't know, man. I mean, they don't have too many picks to trade. They also don't have their pick this year, which is starting to look a little rough given their record. So how does this offense fix itself? I mean, for one, could we not see some just straightforward Luka Porzingis like pick and roll? Like teams usually switch on Porzingis because they dare him to then make that turnaround or whatever. They'd rather that than him just simply rolling to the basket. I understand that, but some sort of cut action or something for Porzingis, or just simply posting him up closer to the basket. I mean, I know Carlisle had his whole spiel about the post-up is not an efficient play, and okay, cool. But if Porzingis is going to take these like turnaround jumpers anyway, then it'd be nice if he was taking them from like 7 feet as opposed to 13. Perhaps you could have a team-wide thing to attack the offensive glass more. Maybe the rotations need to change up a little bit. I mean, Carlisle, he usually sits Luka for about the first 5 or 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, and maybe you want to adjust that a little bit. And then finally, I guess just hope the threes go in more.